This is Geeks Represent, where we talk about representation and issues that matter to us geeks. We are
Daryl,
Joe,
Marshall,
and your host, Sean. Isaac Asimov once said, individual science fiction stories may seem as trivial as ever to the blinder critics and philosophers of today, but the core of science fiction, its essence, has become crucial to our salvation if we are to be saved at all. It's no secret that we love fantasy and science fiction in all its forms here at Geeks Represent, not only for its entertainment value, but for its rich commentary on our society by reimagining our past, remodeling our present, or reshaping our future. However, like anything else good created by mankind, it can be perverted by the specters of racial bias from both creators and fans alike, and, like Asimov implies, may lead to our cultural destruction if not addressed. So, without further ado, let's take a look at racism in science fiction and fantasy. So, geeks, why do you think it's important to call out racism whenever we see it, even in our own most favorite content?
I'll jump.
Sorry.
No, Joe, my turn.
I was just gonna ask Sean to start over because I don't think I got all of that. So could you say all that again?
You didn't get what?
Wait.
I'm just kidding. I'm just messing with you.
I'm like, I don't know how
Someone
to be
throw an orange
clearer.
at him.
Maybe you need a new headphone.
Oh, you wrote the script.
He wrote the script. How do you need it?
I was just messing around. I'm just trying to keep things light.
Oh my lord, this guy. Well, I'll hop in on that question, Sean, as I was paying attention, unlike Joe.
Thank you,
Well,
Marshall.
You're welcome. I feel like we should call out racism when we're in our favorite content because we're already dealing with it in reality. And if I got to deal with it in my fantasy world, I'm going to be pretty pissed off because I can't really say what I really want to say out in the real world because, you know, being a black male in America, it is very frowned upon to have a very loud speech. So, you know, fantasy, that's where I take my dreams of having, like, you know, equal rights and yada yada. But if I got to call out racism, I'm going to call it out as hard as I can. That's just me.
Yeah.
You may speak, Joe.
I was just gonna say that sucks. That's something I luckily don't have to go through, but you know, can't imagine.
Joe's beautiful.
Can't imagine what it's like to be thank you. Can't imagine being in danger of being labeled as the angry black man for like reasonable criticisms.
It does
It just
suck.
sucks.
Yeah. Something in the back of my mind every day. Practically every interaction.
But it does help for like the homeless people so they don't come up to us. So
Well, I'm not saying that, but not saying that.
Is work not going well, Daryl? You about to blow off on somebody?
No. Work has been going well. Shout out to my boy Jason who listens to this podcast. But yeah, it's just in the same vein as some fans of certain media properties saying they don't want more diverse people in their shows or in their movies. I also just don't want people to be racist, if not showing their implicit bias in how they cast or how they portray, how have people portray characters in stuff that I enjoy. And I would say one of those positions kind of is more inclusive to more people than the other.
Yeah, it kind of really sucks when people try to, like, we've talked about this before. It kind of sucks when people try to, like, instead of treating it like a creative decision that benefits and enriches the story as a whole, they treat it as kind of like, at best, tokenism, and at worst, like a PR move. You know what I mean? Like they said, but it's kind of weird. You know, it's like they like to say, like, you're either white or you're political. You're either male or you're political. You're either, straight white male, and if the characters deviate from that, it must have been a political decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, you had to call that out because you let people keep thinking that way, even though they're not going to change their minds, you know, like, but people keep thinking that way, it's really just perpetuating bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's fantasy and fiction, so it's like, why limit? There's no limit on anything, man. There's no limit on diversity or anything. So I don't see why people like are racist in terms of how they want their fandoms or their series to be treated. When it's like, bro, everything's made up, so it's like it's like anyone can be anything.
It kind of, I was just gonna say it feels entitled, right? And I feel like that's kind of a problem with sci-fi and fantasy sometimes, in particular with the audience. Like, they're very entitled people, and they feel like, you know, even though they didn't create it, they're like, I think we talked about this before. They're guests. They are guests to someone's world, but they treat it like it's their world. And it's too many times I've seen people like, if a black guy happens to be in the story when it's being adapted from something that didn't indicate there were any black people, they're like, I come here to escape reality. I come here to escape politics. Like, why did they bring it into like what I enjoy? It's like, whoa, bro, what little whiny shit. Why don't you?
What are you really trying to escape?
I'm trying to escape the black people.
That's basically it. When they say things like that, it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah. So that brings me to my next question. What are some examples of problematic tropes that kind of like, I guess, bring out racism or like kind of perpetuate it? That's what I mean. Perpetuate it.
Well, two things that stick out in my mind. One is Jar Jar Binks from Phantom Menace.
He's a Sith Lord. Leave him alone.
All right. Well, in that case, then I'll just go to the other one, which is the twins from Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, which is interesting because I actually just saw a PBS special, like PBS on YouTube, and they were talking about how black scent gets used a lot, like or ebonics, or as like, you know, basically blackness as an aesthetic, right? And yeah, it made me think of the twins from Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen. I think what did they turn into? Like a Volt. There's like a Chevy Volt and a whatever. And they were like kind of speaking in ebonics. They were like, and it didn't help that they were also like, oh, like we don't know how to read. No, like what? And it was just, I get they were trying to. Well, there were a lot of things wrong with Revenge of the Fallen. That's just one thing. That's just the tip of the iceberg. They have so many other problems that had nothing to do with race. But those are the tip, like trying to treat like blackness as like that's something to poke fun of. You know? No, you guys.
I'll say, like the goblins and house elves in Harry Potter. Dobby wants his own clothes. But yet Dobby had them hands that could literally bust open Dumbledore.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. A snap of his finger sent the Malfoys flying.
I can't. Ever since it's been brought up, I can't shake it, and it's something I thought of like probably like a decade after I read like the last Harry Potter book, right? But just the idea that when house elves are kind of like almost
slaves,
like they are slaves, but like their existence in the their inclusion in the Harry Potter universe is kind of like an apologist, like a slavery apologist. You know what I'm saying? Like, kind
of, yeah. But also, it's the fact that those house elves are also so powerful they don't need a wand, and they're just making them feel less of a wizard or a witch because they're different and they look weird and they don't have correct speech, but yet they have more power than all of them, which is low key.
Same thing for the goblins too, because the goblins have their own magic, and there's a lot of arguments to be made that goblins are kind of a caricature of like Jewish people. You know, as like bankers, long nosed, small, like greedy bankers, right?
Yeah, and then don't forget the Muggles. So
yeah, and those are the elves and the goblins. Granted, it's been a minute since I've read the books, but I didn't really get that from the books and how they're described. Like, like House Elves could have just been like, you know, like they're based off of the elves that like fix your shoes.
Or like make your toys in Santa's shop.
Yeah. But then adding the racism element to it, or even like it to be a little generous, classism maybe.
Yeah,
but
I can see it, which is funny because
with Hermione doing the elf rights advocate thing. I think was her third or second year? I can't remember.
Yeah, she started a spew.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think,
or as Ron likes to call it, the House Elf Liberation Front.
Yeah, I think it was maybe more clear in the movies that you might get that more than the books.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and that might be the bias from, you know, directors and costumers or designers. Well, I guess designers and costumers, and then everyone who approves that up the chain.
Yeah,
which kind of brings me to a point kind of too, is like, if you're reading a book and you're imagining characters, you probably have, as a minority, a pretty diverse like just imagination of what the characters could be, while what often is probably leading to all these problematic like racist fans is that they only see themselves basically when they imagine, and like they can't imagine anything else or any diversity at all.
Yeah, because in at Hogwarts, were there like 5 people of color you could name, and they're all like, for the most part, they're all like what kind of name is Cho Chang, man? Or even like Parvati and Padma Patil. It sounded like J.K. Rowling just picked out like the most common Asian words or Asian names, and just
she was trying to appeal to her readers and her fandom. So it's like, let's be real. In the case of demographics who had read Harry Potter books, it was like what 98% young teenagers who were mostly from the what's the politically correct term, Icelandic and
you could just say Europe.
Eastern Europe persuasion. So they're like, oh, Patel, I know what that means. That means she's Indian, right? Oh shit, you guessed it. Good job, Brittany. Yay. I know things around the world.
Wait, her name is Cho. Is she Asian? Her last name's Chang. Yeah, she's Asian.
Melanie. Her name was probably Melanie or some shit. It's like, no, your name is now Cho Chang. It's like, my father's name is Thompson. Well, guess what? No, it's not.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of 5 characters.
Lee Jordan.
Get from the book.
Lee Jordan and Dean Thomas were 2 black kids, and I think Hermione, if you want to go there, could be arguably black.
But
which kind of
the same thing with like Hermione. The same thing with like Lee Jordan. I just knew him as the guy who did all of the Quidditch announcing and play-by-play, but couldn't really put a race to his character. Which
I think it mentioned in the first book even that he was a kid with dreads.
Really?
Her real name is Katie Long.
Yeah.
Her name is Katie Long.
She was Caitlin in Arcane, but that's a whole other thing. But yeah. Which kind of sucks because I thought the whole thing about Harry Potter was like, it's supposed to be like pretty much a retelling of like, you know, white supremacy. It was all allegory, right? White supremacy, but it's kind of undercut by all these like tiny little issues, you know.
Well, people on the good side being racist still.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They showed that too.
That's a good point you raised. Because there's a lot of stories that deal with, well, I wasn't trying to use the word white, but like
Caucasian.
No.
European.
Like from a fantasy sense, like certain
Slavic.
races or people groups believing that they're superior above everyone else.
Skyrim belongs to the Nords. Like, when Lydia first said that, I was like, fuck you, Lydia. But go on.
But I mean, there's that example. And I'm thinking of some things from the Stormlight archives from Brandon Sanderson. Well, to say this in the most gentle way, there is race of people that have been all enslaved across like the planet in that world, and there's so many fans are like, well, the way the people are treated aren't right. These people should be treated better. We find out that there was basically this people group called the Parshmen, like Coachmen, but Parsh. They were kind of it's sounding worse and worse now that I'm trying to say it out loud. But they don't really have much agency in of themselves. So they will basically do whatever you tell them to do. And the people group that the main Stormlight Archive books are focused on, the Alethi, they find a group of Parshmen who have their own culture. They are intelligent. They have a unique way of living and a whole bunch of things that they didn't know Parshmen could do for like 5,000 years. And they end up going to war, but because the Parshendi, the cultured people, you can say, were basically had their king assassinated. So it's a long story. Try not to give any spoilers, but the assassination happens in the prologue of the book, so that ain't anything. But yeah, there are so many people that like enjoy the books that are like, hey, the way these people are being treated weren't right, because you find out that the people who were the Parshmen had, while they were not really right in the head, they all were thinking, living creatures and people that were just trapped in their own minds, essentially. And so they learned, they grew, they adopted the cultures of the different places in the world that they lived in. And yeah, once they get their minds back, they're like, we need reparations for all the things that you've done to us over the years. Or we'll conquer you guys. So yeah.
Sounds like Killmonger.
I mean, yeah. And point is, too many fans of the series are like either actual people, class struggles, the issues that are being brought up in the series are valid, and like there should be some reckoning, but may not get to that point when it comes to actual people in real life.
Yeah. You're saying it's easier for them to relate to fictional characters than it is to relate to the people actually struggling around them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Wheel of Time and the people who actually are calling themselves White Cloaks and are persecuting people of other races, like the people in that book.
I checked out their subreddit. They're pretty dead right now.
Okay. Well, still.
That's good. Yeah. The fact that they even like rose up, just...
Yeah.
But that happens. That happens too often. Like it happened when like Black Panther came out. We bring this example all the time when like someone's like, I don't want to watch it because I can't relate to someone who doesn't look like me, while simultaneously wearing a My Little Pony shirt. It's like, again, you're a joke. So
I have a rant in the cylinder if you want to talk about Star Wars, but I'll hold off for now.
Okay. There is one more trope that I feel like does need to be addressed. What do you guys think about the idea of like POCs and sci-fi usually being casted for like others? I'm talking like aliens, and like I mainly think of like like in Stargate SG-1 in the main cast, the one black guy was Teal'c, who was a great character, loved him, the badass of Stargate, in my opinion. But he was made to be like, like the centuries old, yeah, kind of like alien. Well, technically human. Jaffa have a whole history in that show, but basically they're like kind of like a offshoot of humans. But yeah, so he's like the other, or like look at Avatar. Zoe Saldana and like other people of color tend to be casted as a Na'vi. And then when she's casted as Gamora, like there's
paid more.
True, but they get like there's definitely a pattern when it comes to like aliens or orcs or like if you need people of color in your cast, that's usually where they stick them.
I mean, yeah, Michael Clark Duncan did Planet of the Apes, and he dressed up literally as a gorilla because they paid him an extra $20K on top of that. So
I mean,
that's why he did it. $20K on top of your usual. He was like what, the main bad dude in that. So it's like,
oh, are you talking about like the Mark Wahlberg one?
Yeah, from 2000.
Yeah, I try to put that out of my mind.
I mean, obviously, but still, like it's like, hey, if you want to be in this movie, you got to play an ape. I'm not doing that. We'll give you an extra $20K on top of your $100K. Fine, I'll do it.
Weren't most of the bad apes black actors? I feel like there was someone who wasn't, like their leader.
There was some, but they were mostly African Americans who played the apes because they don't want white people wearing blackface while wearing the mask.
And I think the one helpful ape was like Helena Bonham Carter because Tim Burton. Yeah, that's not a great look.
No.
Because like I said, like a Lord of the Rings, like, well, you can't have dark skinned elves. So even though they're literally called dark elves, you can't have dark skinned elves, but you can have black orcs.
Yeah. Except for the very special pale orc they introduced in The Hobbit.
Because he's the leader. He can't be black.
That's the reason they use. Just adding that to the end of that sound clip, so just in case someone pulls it out.
Yes.
Yeah. We want you to still be able to run for office in 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Obama wasn't there around yet. I don't think. Actually, I don't know. I don't even remember how old Return to King is, but whatever.
2005.
Oh yeah, no, yeah. They didn't realize what was possible.
I mean, The Hobbit was like 5-7 years ago, though. So
yeah, that's true.
No excuse.
No.
Yeah. I was going to go back to Daryl's point of it being interesting that fans sympathize with the plight of the people from the Stormlight Arc. You said the
Stormlight
Archives, yeah. And I think it's because they feel sympathy if it doesn't involve accountability on their part. So that's why.
Yeah.
It's so easy to do that.
It doesn't make them feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Or make them feel like they have to put in the effort to change.
Yeah. Well, real life definitely makes people uncomfortable and they don't do shit.
Yeah. It's true.
I mean, I agree with Joe's point too that it's problematic that is the only roles that was offered for minorities or had really, but at least it seems like things are changing in the more recent series of fantasy stuff. So at least it's moving in a better direction. But yeah, because there's definitely a lot of people calling that out. So that's good. We need to keep calling it out, which brings us to reiterating our first question. It's like, it's important to call it out because it leads to change like that. I'm curious to hear what you were going to say about Jar Jar Binks.
Oh, well, apparently he's a Sith Lord, so I guess that makes him awesome.
True.
But there's arguments that in Phantom Menace, not only Jar Jar Binks, but who was the guy who owned Anakin?
Oh, Watto.
Oh, Watto, yeah.
Yeah, so both of them. Well, the argument is that for Jar Jar Binks specifically, he's kind of a character of like black people,
but there's Mace Windu.
This is true.
And Ahsoka.
This is true. Ahsoka didn't come till later, though.
I mean,
Ahsoka didn't come till way later, though.
But there's also the clones and then Mace Windu.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's after Phantom Menace, though.
Yeah.
I mean, Windu is still there.
He's always there.
Oh, I guess he was. Yeah.
Yeah. He was on the council. He was like,
What?
we can't trust this kid.
But yeah, it's been a minute. I refuse to watch that movie again, though. But there's that argument that like the big lips, clumsiness, like kind of like almost like I don't know, maybe it's kind of a reach, but like kind of almost like a minstrel sort of thing, like a minstrel character meant to like be the jester, which you always have one of those in like a movie, but for him in particular. And then again, there's the whole idea of like I forgot his name again, but the owner of Anakin being like Jewish, like or like being like a caricature of Jewish people, and it's like again with the big snout and all that. So I don't know. It could be a reach, but
I mean, people also
the fact that we even had to question it.
People said that also for the Trade Federation leaders being Asian stereotype
in Star Trek.
So the Trade Federation, Star Wars, the droid owners.
Oh, right. I forgot about. Yeah. Okay. I thought you were talking about the what do they call it? That one alien race in Star Trek too.
Ferengi.
Yeah.
Yeah. That too.
Sometimes they pull from a little too much source material.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the only explanation for Phantom Menace. Like I said, yeah, Marshall, you brought up a good point, like Mace Windu, but like that's kind of like saying like, oh, like Ghost in the Shell, like, oh, we have Asian characters here. Or no, better example, Last Airbender, we have Asian characters. Just it doesn't cover up the other mistakes in the rest of it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, I mean, Jar Jar. Yeah, I didn't really think of that, but yeah, I mean, he definitely is a Joker, jester type, minstrel type thing for sure. Example. Yeah, that leads to what we're probably going to talk about in our next question, since a lot of it seems to be Star Wars. Do you think there's a particularly racist element in fandoms? And if so, what are some examples?
Again, entitled little shits. I feel like entitled little shits are everywhere in like any kind of like fandom, whether it be like sports or, you know, like in any like field. But for some reason, sci-fi fantasy just draws like the most like annoying.
Yeah. There's a lot of gatekeeping in sci-fi fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Not just talking about the purists either, who insist like, oh, everything has to be exact. We talked about this before with Cowboy Bebop, when people were jumping all over Mustafa Shakir for playing Jet Black, saying Jet Black ain't black. It's just...
Yeah.
So I was just saying, like, they hide behind like, oh, I just want it to be accurate. And it's like, you want live action to be just like an anime. Good job. So
yeah, it's like you want a fiction to be accurate to real life. It's like, okay, well,
they want, again, entitled. They want it their way. They want it the way they imagine it in their heads.
Yeah,
which was so many people were like all up in arms when, like, you know, the stage version of Harry Potter had a black woman play Hermione, and they were like, no, you can't have that. And it's like, nothing in the books ever said she was white.
Yeah.
But now I can't see myself in her.
Yeah. You always could. You did it before. Didn't matter what race he was.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. This makes me think of all of the, I mean, I'll say it, fake Star Wars fans that got enraged when the Force Awakens trailer first came out, and they showed John Boyega take off a Stormtrooper mask.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, they're like, these were clone troopers. There's no way that he could be a black guy. But when
the clones ain't white either.
And I'm just going back even before Attack of the Clones, back to the original Star Wars, where all the Stormtroopers weren't clones there either.
No, they were recruited.
Yeah, they recruited people. Because the whole gambit of when Luke and Han were trying to sneak into the Death Star and rescue Leia wouldn't have worked if they all had the freaking same voice when he was trying to call on the intercom and answer them. Yeah. It wouldn't make any sense whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. You also see them all different heights, different builds all the time. Like even in Force Awakens, you see another Stormtrooper, a big ass dude with his like lightning mace. Right?
And it explains too, like why they have horrible aim, because in Clone Wars, all the clones have like amazing training and they're
True.
very accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like Captain Phasma, isn't that kind of there? You go. They recruit. They're not all clones unless they decide to just change one clone's gender for no reason.
Yeah,
and then add a foot to her height.
like it's not even. I'm not even going super deep into like extended universe stuff to try and explain this. This is just if you watched Star Wars before, you should be able to pick this up and not any well, Star Wars before without any bias against Black people doing anything.
But like, my question is, what was the purpose of that? I mean, bias has no purpose, not really. But like, why even have that bias of like, oh, all the stormtroopers have to be white? Why? Like, or all the clone troopers? Like I said, again, you were trying to avoid extended years, but like, Boba Fett ain't white.
Yeah,
Jango Fett ain't white. Like, the actors weren't white. Well, so you were trying about like the original, like original trilogy, but like when you revealed who Jango Fett is, he's clearly what is he like Polynesian or like Pacific Islander? I'm trying to look it up real quick.
I believe so, but yeah, confirm still.
But yeah, Star Wars fans in particular kind of suck.
I do, man. Like, I feel so bad for Jake Lloyd after the first movie. He like basically retired because he got bullied and stuff in school and by the media. It's like, man, he's just a little kid trying to be Anakin.
Oh god.
And like, acting is tough, man. Like,
yeah.
What do you like? What do you want? Like, as a fan, like, what do you want? Like, you should be happy that your thing is on the screen.
It's so weird. It's kind of a tangent from the topic of racism, but more like just protecting like kids and like movies and stuff. But like, it's not just Star Wars fans, because apparently, like, if you've seen Multiverse of Madness, has everyone here seen Multiverse of Madness?
Oh yeah, but I think I know who you're talking about.
Like, they were talking about like Wanda's kids.
Yeah.
Right, and there was a very short scene. Without trying to spoil too much, they sing a song like little kids do. Like, they made up a song. I think it was about ice cream or something. They made up a song and they just sang it to their mom, like just wanting to, show off to their mom, like any other like kid who's probably like 7, 8, 9 years old, right? And apparently fans were giving them crap for like that was a terrible song, or like wow, that was trash, or like that was terribly written. And I was just like, they're fucking kids, man. Why are you going after them for clearly what's supposed to be a goofy kid song?
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I have a feeling they're gonna do that same thing with Leia and Obi-Wan, because don't get me wrong, she's annoying as crap, but she's pretty good as an actress. I think she's amazing. Like, she really conveys her emotions really well. But like, like, who cares if she's annoying, or like, because that was the issue they had with Anakin. I'm like, that's kind of the point of the series. I'm like, at no point it runs in the family, like being annoying. Like, Anakin annoying, Luke very whiny, Kylo Ren very very whiny. Like, like I don't.
Oh, such angst. The angst runs in the family.
It's probably all the midichlorians they have. I don't know.
More.
Oh wow. Oh, I didn't even think of that. Yeah. I don't know.
Back to our point. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, when it comes to that sort of thing, we should go back to the point. But I feel like kids are just off limits.
Yeah.
Especially as actors, it's just like,
yeah, because it's like a crazy world they just thrown into the entertainment world.
Yeah. Like, I don't think people realize the pressure that gets put on them, and like they think it's not hard for like a kid.
Yeah.
Right. Again, it's that sense of entitlement, but whatever.
Yeah.
Like, how much work were you doing when you were 8 years old?
Right. Do you even have like half the acting jobs?
Yeah.
But now they blame him for like the dialogue. Like, yeah, true. Like, oh, it's so wizard. That's cringy as fuck, but it's not his fault. Or like when people were shitting on, like, same thing for like Last Airbender. I think a lot, like the kid who played Aang got a lot of shit for it, and I was like,
no, his name was Ong, according to the thing. Ong.
Shut up, Marshall.
I'm just saying, we all know what the name was. He's like,
yeah. I'm sorry, but yeah, like, was it miscast? Sure. Was it dialogue shitty? Sure, but none of it was, that
was the bending shitty? Yes, 100% it was. I can show you better fire bending with a lighter and some Lysol. What's up? Then we'll take half an hour for me
to be Yeah, like, blame the director and blame like the writing. Like,
I mean, it was Shyamalan.
Don't blame the kid.
Shyamalan. Yeah, it was a twist, though. I'll tell you that. A lot of people walked out. I know I did.
Maybe they see them as easy targets, and maybe that's why they also go after, in an effort to steer the conversation back. They see people of color as easy targets too, and that's why they like to blame them for supposedly ruining like the material, right? And it's like Daryl was talking about, like John Boyega when he took off, like, and how dare they insinuate that he could be a Jedi when, again, Mace Windu.
Yeah.
So, but the idea of like a stormtrooper being a Jedi, which honestly, I feel like they could have stuck to that. And part of me can't help but wonder if, like, did they change it to just, because then what was the point of Finn's character after a while?
I mean, the sequels were all over the place. They lost track of everything that they had.
Exactly.
Because he got
which seems to be a running thing with Star Wars, because, if you remember the original trilogy, like, Leia kissed Luke, and then next sequel, all of a sudden they're siblings. It's like, you didn't think that through, did you? Like, you didn't think ahead.
Well, they didn't know, so...
Sweet home Alabama.
At least they kind of had that excuse, I suppose. Well, this was like... Yeah, this was just like, they just didn't know what to do with him as a character.
Yeah, but I feel like I can't help but wonder if they originally did like the idea of a stormtrooper, because that's a great idea. Like, starting off working for fighting for the enemy, fighting himself, and there's like metaphors all over that shit of him fighting the Force and like, I mean, rising above.
They have a lot of Jedis that went to the dark side, like the Inquisitors, like in the current Obi-Wan, which brings us back to our point with like Moses Ingram. She's an amazing third sister, but she actually like carries a lot of the series so far in terms of like her energy and just like her sass and just basically how badass she is as a like Force user. And she gets a lot of hate too, and it's like, why?
I did see an Instagram post of hers where like she's just going to like a small snippet of like the hate like DMs that she's been getting. One of them I read, it was like fucked up. It was like kind of like making fun of Ebonics, like saying, reimagine like hey, I don't even want to. But as far as I know, it's okay. Yeah, but or like ghettoizing her dialogue, basically, or and you see this happen all the time with like, again in Star Wars, Kelly Marie Tran, or who, again, they didn't know what to do with her character, but that's not her fault, but they went after her. For multiple reasons. One, for being like a potential romantic interest for Finn. Another, for just being in the fucking movie. And like harassing her for it. And to the point where she and Anna Diop for Titans, like they both had to deactivate or leave social media for a while because, it just got flooded with hate, with like racist ass shit. It's just, and it makes me think like, I don't even think John Boyega got that much like hate mail. He got a lot of criticism, but I feel like when it comes to like women, like for some reason, fucking racist assholes think they're easy targets. Probably because they can't get laid in their own lives. So
I hope they don't, so they don't spawn hateful children.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, it's such a shame because like I enjoyed. I guess I'm on episode 3 of Obi-Wan, and I've enjoyed her performances. But in the back of my mind, I was like, "This is great. Shame she's going to be attacked by racist people, though, because this is she's being a good villain.
She's objectively great.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks because I'm not like the fact that I kind of know she's going to be attacked even after the first episode finished. Kind of ruined my enjoyment of the show because it's like,
yeah. How can you enjoy a show if you're actually worrying about the safety and the sanity of the actors involved? Yeah,
that's true.
And that's kind of the world we live in. I feel like that's, you know what, that is one example of white privilege, never having to worry about that.
Yeah.
If they cast white people, you never have to worry about them being hated on for changing their race or something, or featuring.
Or like whitewashing, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like just like Daryl said, like the moment I saw her out in the show, I was like, fuck, she's gonna get attacked. And for no other reason than her skin color, because like her performance is stellar. So like what else do you have to complain about? And that's what they complain about.
Maybe the actions he's taking as a villain, but that's no excuse because that's a fictional character doing stuff to fictional people.
Yeah, like that's how she was written, and she's doing it clearly well. And like it doesn't make any sense either because Inquisitors are also like diverse as well.
Did Zazie Beetz get any hate when she was cast as Domino? Like, did she get harassed when she was Domino? Yeah,
absolutely,
for sure.
Now, compared to that, did Michael B. Jordan when he was casted as Johnny Storm?
Yeah.
Oh, well, all right.
That whole movie. No.
I was just trying to like see if there was like any like also gender bias, like
no.
Or did he just not talk about it?
We don't talk about that Fantastic Four. No.
Oh no, but like. It did suck, but that wasn't Michael B. Jordan's fault, and I think that's my point. It's like, did he get blamed for it? But
like, I don't know the. Oh, my bad. So I don't know about like the degree of abuse he got online, but I don't believe that he like had to deactivate any of his socials.
No,
it's a lot.
Yeah,
and they didn't blame the downfall of the movie on him or the stellar performance on him either.
Yeah,
which I think goes to your point where like I think the gender does influence a bit because Mose Ingram, there's nothing wrong with Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan's amazing, so still getting flack.
Yeah, and Zazie Beetz got flack even though her performance was amazing. Right. Yeah. Domino was a fucking badass, but
I just remember there's a podcast called This Week in Blackness. I just listened to a good bit.
Link it in the references.
Yeah. I just remember one of the hosts. It's been a minute because I think they went on hiatus for a bit. But one of the hosts, she's black, she's female, and she was talking about all the death threats she got for just her posts.
Jesus
and
Christ.
One of the things that someone came back and said to her after her posting was like, yeah, sorry about sending the death threats. I was feeling really emotional. I just wanted to get it out. So sorry if you're feeling uncomfortable, but it's like, there's so many stages you can go through before sending someone a death threat.
Wasn't that the same excuse like the fucking Georgia shooter gave? Like, oh, sorry, I was feeling emotional. Sorry for killing these like Asian women.
Like kind of bad day.
Like, what the fuck? What kind of fucking excuse is that for sending death threats?
It's not. It's absurd. And there's so many other things you can do.
Yeah.
You can even write it out and not send it.
Yeah. God. Write it down, throw it, make it into a paper airplane, throw it out the window. So, like, Jesus.
Goes back to your idea of entitlement. Like, they feel so entitled that their opinion needs to be heard when it shouldn't.
Entitled, and also, like, what did Mike Tyson say? People are behaving way too much like they can't get punched in the face. That's what social media has done. Like, it's emboldened people who get to do things and be cowards.
Yeah.
Ugh. Again, sci-fi and fantasy are amazing. It's really the fans that ruin it. Yeah.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mark Hamill said that.
What about that second point you wrote down, Joe?
Oh, like that was very specific towards like, you know, how people feel about like The Witcher and the Witcher's inclusion of like black elves. And then people are like, elves are literally fair skinned. How is there supposed to be black elves? And I'm like, bitch, this dude like uses like force shields on everyone. There's fucking monsters that grow from people's bodies like fucking trees. And they have genies.
You want to think about,
and that's the hill you want to die on. That's like just mad that there are elves that are not Caucasian, which is funny because I don't know, maybe that's because the next Witcher series, the spinoff Blood Origin, is like starring like Michelle Yeoh, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like other like people of color being casted as different like people of that world. And so maybe that was a big fuck you to them, but I don't know. Or like with Marshall, you've played the game The Witcher, right?
Yes, I have.
Did you feel any type of way towards like the Witcher series, like with Triss Merigold, being played by a I'm pretty sure she's of Middle Eastern descent. I'm gonna look it up real quick.
No, Triss was supposed to be a beautiful she was supposed to be a beautiful witch with a lot of spunk and dark hair. Those are her only requirements, and a love insurance of my man. And that's what she was. Homegirl was looking amazing. Granted, she was a badass, but yeah, that's what she's supposed to be.
Her parents are South African, and she also has a Jewish in her.
Yeah, they didn't really give her like a whole origin story in the game. They just said, "Oh shit, do you want to betray her? And if you betray her, you're gonna fight a whole different demon. But if you fuck her, you don't have to." So I was like, you know, I'm gonna do that. So I did that.
I mean,
I killed the redhead. I killed redhead for the win.
I mean, but
yep.
It's like, but Yennefer though.
Vandenberg.
I mean, but anyway, we're regardless. But I'm just saying, like, she got shat on too for being cast as Triss, because she's not a pure white woman. But you know, in the Witcher game, she's always portrayed as like that redhead, right? Which
they never played the games. They're just upset.
But I'm just like, I can't help but wonder if that's why in the second season I couldn't help but notice that they made Triss's character a little lighter. Actually, she looked lighter, and they definitely highlighted. They made her hair look more red.
Mm-hmm.
But which I feel like making her hair redder, like in the games, that's one thing. But like making her skin tone like a shade lighter, I'm like, seems problematic. but that's what I'm saying. But anyway, that's just, I feel like it's just rooted from people. I think Daryl, you mentioned it. Like people thinking like medieval fantasy, they assume like Middle Earth, they assume it has to be in like a European setting. Therefore, only European people are in it. Or like same thing with game God of War, right? With the addition of a black character in the latest game, Ragnarok. So it's like they can't believe that black people can, I don't know, travel.
Yeah. And I will say with Lord of the Rings, it is basically based off of Europe, but black people also existed in Europe.
Exactly.
Moors.
Yeah.
Some historical context.
Yeah. I don't know. I wonder if like that you remember like Robin Hood with like Morgan Freeman as like a Moor?
No.
With Kevin Costner. I'm just wondering, like, kind of random, but like if that existed today, would people be all over like, why is Morgan Freeman? Hell, I don't think anyone shout on Jamie Foxx for being in the latest like as Little John, right?
I mean, my definitive
Jamie Foxx will fuck him up.
My definitive Robin Hood story is Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Oh, fair.
Dave Chappelle. So
don't touch that. Don't touch that. Y'all racists, don't touch that shit. Yeah. No, for sure. But yeah, that was the only point I was making with, like, you know, again, they can't envision a European, like a medieval world with Black people in it. It's like Black people didn't exist before the 1500s.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and they get butthurt. The fans get butthurt that it's like, oh, studios are trying to capitalize on diversity. Stupid.
So what if they are? Because guess what? White people, you only make up like 10% of the damn planet. Shut the fuck up.
So, talk about studios. There's one thing I do have to give the Doctor Who revival credit for, is that there were a lot more people of color, like, cast in, like, episodes that I realized. Well, to say, I appreciated all of the different casting of people of color across the Roger RTD era, the first era. And I was like, okay, there's this, like, Black people in incidental roles. And we had the first Black companions in those series. In series 2 with Mickey, and series 3 with Martha.
I think I remember that.
But then I also give what's his name? Starts with S. Stephen Moffat. A little flack for not really doing that, not really continuing that. If there was someone of color, it was made more of a big deal. Like it was like a certain plot point. I remember there's a story where they're talking about faith, and they had a Muslim character on there, and I was like, okay, it's cool that they're there, but I wouldn't mind that. Aside from this person who was there in this case, having more people in essential roles would be great.
Was it Stephen Moffat who was like basically show running when they started just casting like comedians like Karen Gillan, Jenna Coleman, Billie Piper, which is all white women?
Billie Piper was in the first one. But no. Jenna Coleman, Karen Gillan, and
I can't recall any other major like companions. Donna Noble.
Oh no, that was RTD as well.
Okay.
I'm not sure about a River Songs actress.
Oh, Alex Kinson?
Yeah.
I thought she was mixed race. Yeah.
I thought so.
Half German. I think she has Jewish ancestry.
Okay.
But yeah, I always thought she was mixed race as well. But
yeah,
guess not.
I mean, I don't know. Nothing comes up on Wikipedia, so I know nothing.
Yeah. No, like, you know, to add to Doctor Who's credit, what do you think? Have you heard about the recent casting of the new Doctor Who?
Yeah.
It's the kid from Sex Education, right? Forgot his name.
I think Nukti Gatwa.
Yeah, you can definitely tell the bias of the news articles posting him, because he's also, he portrays a gay character, and I think the actor himself is also gay. And so you can definitely tell the difference between the news articles celebrating it with, like, you know, professional photos of him, like the red carpet, and then others clearly trying to stir up shit by using like the gayest, most fabulous, like, the quote unquote fabulous photos of him in their article to try to like stir up, like, hey, guess what? Doctor Who's trying to be too woke by adding gay, like a flamboyant gay actor. And I was like, again, backlash, like more backlash. So possibly more backlash than when Jodie Whittaker was Doctor Who, or the Doctor. I shouldn't say Doctor Who. I know I fuck that up all the time.
That's fine. The 12th Doctor also did the same thing, so it's fine.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know, because like I said before, it's a woman doing something, so people get mad. So
yeah, and now they're gonna see us like doubling down, like, no, well, you didn't like a white woman, here's a black man.
I mean, spoilers for one of the better episodes of Jay Wicker's run, but they also did cast a black woman as an actress. As an actress, as
an actress,
as an earlier incarnation.
A black woman as an actress. The world we live in.
I mean, I could have said that she was playing an actress on the TV show, but that's not the case. But no, she was one of the Doctor's earlier incarnations, which is a whole other loaded topic that I don't want to get into right now. But I'm sure she got a good bit of flack, but I don't know. I actually can't say that for sure, but because there are a lot more issues with the show at that point.
I'm sure, but all of a sudden people become like Time Lord experts, like crawling out of the muck, like inserting their own opinions on how too woke the casting is. I don't know.
Well, yeah, people were mad when Jodie Whittaker was cast, even though literally since like series 5,
Time Lords can come back as different genders, right?
Yeah, that's when they started depicting that. So literally for like
5 decades, 7 decades.
Series 6 in the revival. So
okay,
so like at least 5 years.
Yeah,
you've seen that happen on and off screen. So especially with the Master being turned to Missy literally in the previous season. So
and this kind of goes into more gender than race, but it's still. You guys believe like there's been responses to like She-Hulk being like, why are they trying to be woke, making like introducing like a female Hulk? And I was like, She-Hulk's been around since the 80s.
Yeah.
Like what the fuck?
I haven't seen that myself, but wouldn't be surprised.
She-Hulk is like one of the most iconic like superheroes. She's a badass. It's like she's been around forever.
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's mostly people who've never actually read the comics or seen the show before. They're just they don't like change. I don't know what that is. Wah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Whiny little bitches.
So that brings us to our next point. What can we do as both creators and fans to address racism in sci-fi and fantasy?
Well, in my opinion, number one thing is to support writers who are writers or showrunners or directors, producers who are people of color and or stories about people of color. I actually recently finished up reading N.K. Jemisin's Far Sector, which is her own take on the Green Lantern lore. And
that's right.
Yeah, and she is like the main character is a badass. Like she's a black woman. She's queer. She's a veteran and an ex-cop. And the book itself like goes like it's great that it's both a black writer and a black artist like doing all of it, and the art's phenomenal. And like it goes into like her journey into like why she got recruited as a Green Lantern, and part of that is because she was fired as a cop, not for standing up to her partner who was beating up on a homeless guy, but because she posted, someone tagged her in support of Black Lives Matter, and so she got fired for that. And in like her like darkest moment, that was when a Guardian approached her and offered her like, how would you like to like how would you like to know what true justice is, right? And anyway, it's just like phenomenal. She's a great, well-rounded, fleshed out character, and it's a big bonus that she's also a big anime nerd. So like most of her Lantern constructs are like giant mecha. Like I'm pretty sure one is based on like a Gundam, and every time she transforms into her like Green Lantern suit, a tiny little fairy who's clearly modeled after Sailor Moon is like spinning around her. And she's a big fan of fanfics. Yeah, it's great. So yeah, stories like that. A friend of mine recommended to me to read The Poppy Wars by like R.F. Kuang. You know, like clearly like stories of like Asian inspiration. And even if the writer isn't necessarily like, this might be controversial, even if a writer isn't necessarily a person of color, I'm thinking specifically of like Neil Gaiman, who with his stories American Gods and Anansi Boys, which is funny. He never explicitly says the characters are black, although the American Gods show, reveals like, yes, Shadow Moon is. Because there's a whole scene in the book where someone asks him, like, are you black? And he actually says, I'm not sure. Like, because he's supposed to be racially ambiguous, which I think is supposed to be a commentary on, because he himself represents kind of like the spirit of America. But the show makes it more explicit where the same demon guy is like, are you black? And he's like, is that a problem? So, which gives off a really great exchange between him and the demon's name is Chernobog. And he was like, he kind of go into the tangent, but he makes a wager with him. Like, if you can beat me at checkers, if I will join your war. But if I beat you in checkers, I get to smash your head. And then Chernobog beats him at checkers, and he's like, "Oh, it's such a shame. You're my only black friend." I was like, "Wow!" But anyway, again, supporting stories like that. American Gods, I think it got canceled, but also, you know what? That is an example of, I guess, racial bias in the producers, because they changed showrunners for the last season, and the last season summarily fired Orlando Jones, who was playing a Nazi, right? And the thing is, the reason why American Gods got a lot of attention was for a particular scene that got on YouTube, where you're on a slave ship, and these slaves are on their way to America and crying and praying to their gods, and Anansi hears their prayers, shows up. Again, this is in like the 1500s on a slave ship, and Anansi shows up in like a bright purple suit, right? Like dressed very modernly, and explains to them their future and their descendants' futures, being like, y'all are fucked. In 100 years, you're fucked. In 200 years, y'all fucked. And the only semblance of satisfaction you can get is that all that tobacco you've been picking will give these white motherfuckers cancer. And instead of letting these particular slaves go through that, he releases their chains and he's like, raise some fucking hell. And they burn the ship down. So, apparently that was too controversial, because the showrunner for the last season was like, we don't want politics to be involved in this. So they pretty much got rid of Anansi's character, because he was pretty much representing as the African like spider god. He pretty much represented like the plight of African Americans, and they were like, no, that's too political. We gotta get rid of you.
Black people existing being political.
Yeah, not even just exist. I hope it was just for exist. I wish it was. I don't know, like for existing and for actually addressing like the shit that actually is going on in America. Like, so yeah, that's shitty. So I don't know, but like I said, back to my main point, try to support like stories about people who don't necessarily look like you, right? Maybe it'll actually expand your mind a little bit.
I always found it funny that people are like, oh no, I don't want my story to be political, when stories and fantasy and all that stuff is like commentary on just all the things in the world. So if that's really big in society, and it often is, yeah, it should be represented. I never got why people said that, because I think it's just people don't like to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, or it's easier to imagine circumstances, because like aren't like almost all superhero comics, anyone with like superpowers, that's usually an allegory for being a person of color, or for being like LGBTQ, or being an immigrant. Superman was an immigrant story.
Yeah.
Like, and people forget that shit.
People do forget that shit.
Or Star. Yeah, right. Or like, look at back to Star Wars. Star Wars was about colonialism. Like, straight up. It's like, there's no denial. Like, objectively speaking, Star Wars has always been about like the evils of imperialism, or imperialist colonialism. Why are people so clueless when it comes to like real world shit?
Yeah, they accept that, but not color.
No. And also, when did that become political? Why is that considered? I feel like political is like a can't cop out to not talk about it. You know, if it makes you uncomfortable, it's too political. You know, when did people's rights to exist become political?
Yeah.
So I'm getting
Absolutely,
heated.
man.
I'm getting heated as shit. Thinking about American Gods made me mad. It might have raised my blood pressure too, just because like American Gods is a great story, and the show was pretty good. You know, and then they fucking ruined it at the end.
Yeah, I feel you, man. So, guys, any last thoughts?
I think Joe kind of summed it up pretty well. It's just like pretty much every story that matters. Someone else go.
Well, I was gonna ask the rest of you as well. Like, what other ways could we address racism in sci-fi and fantasy besides, again, supporting storytellers and stories about people of color, or even creating your own content, maybe?
Yeah, and also just pointing out things in stories that people may not realize is allegorical to things in real life, because people can be oblivious that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That and our earlier point of just calling people out.
Yeah.
With to varying degrees of success. You know,
Yeah.
Social media aside, where really no one changes their minds ever, and people are allergic to nuance.
And if they do change their minds, they seldom say they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it seems like at least the biggest change comes to your point of supporting stories and whatnot written by people of color. Because like you see it in like the casting and even just the new adaptations that are popping up on TV.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think one of the creators of Master of None said it best. He was like, "Hey, Asian parents, instead of giving your kids a violin, give them a video camera." And I think that resonated with me. It was like, hey, it's not just like being on the screen too. It's like being in positions where you can make decisions.
Yeah.
Right. Becoming a film producer or a book editor. Right. Being in positions where you can like uplift people of color.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people forget the importance of all the people in the background because they get so fixated on just who's on the screen that they don't realize how much energy and effort goes into making those people amazing. So yeah, we definitely need all those unsung heroes in the background for sure.
Yeah. I mean, getting back to American Gods is a good example of that, because even without Anansi, there were plenty of people of color in the cast, like playing different gods or doing different characters. But none of that mattered. None of that matters when the showrunner is an oblivious white guy, right?
So yeah, listeners, what are your thoughts on today's episode? Leave your comments below. Thanks for tuning in to Geeks Represent. If you've enjoyed this discussion, subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts can be found. If you want to add to this discussion, visit geeksrepresent.com. Thanks for listening and sharing with your friends.